My soul took it upon itself to leave. That's how I understood it. It's Barcelona, 1992. I'm 21 years old and I am living a degenerate existence. And towards Christmas of that year, I had an event that changed the way that I perceived reality. In line with my pledge of honesty in the way of integrity, a video that you can find on my channel, I have decided to share the paranormal events of my life. And this first one concerns an almost out of body experience. It took place on a single bed in a back room of an apartment. I think we're on the fourth floor. There were huge turquoise flowers the size of dinner plates on the wall. I would go to bed very late, very drunk most nights. I was smoking really heavily. And then when I went to bed, because this happened over a series of nights, in fact, for a period, it was every night, I started to get really strange sensations in my body. I felt as if I was coming unpinned from myself. So I'd be on that downward slope towards sleep. The first sensation I would get would be a kind of weird alertness. But in my mind, I see it a little bit like iron filings standing on end under the influence of a magnet. So I guess some kind of electrical force. The next thing that would happen was I felt that I was becoming unmoored from my body. That's the best I can do as a description. And I would have a queasy sense. If you've ever taken a really fast elevator and you've gone up like 50 floors and your stomach seemed to be moving at a different speed, it was a little bit like that. There was a separation, there was an inner separation that was occurring. And I felt a movement of energy going down my body towards my feet and then up again. And it was like if you have like maybe a steel ball and you're rolling it down and up a slope, and then on one of the ways back up, it's just going to fly off. I felt as if I was going to leave my body. I felt that I was dying. It wasn't a panic attack. I didn't have, I got those later. It was a real sense of a total a total energetic disalignment. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening. And the only solution that I found was to roll over onto my stomach and put my arm underneath the base of the bed and just hold on for dear life. I was holding on to the bed frame so that I wouldn't fly out up to the ceiling. This was a prelude for a complete mental collapse. I went back to the UK at Christmas and I was watching Paul Daniels' magic show with my mum and dad, and I had a full-blown panic attack. So this was a completely different experience. That was a racing heart, sweating, pins and needles in my hands, a feeling of physical terror. Not at all like what I'd experienced lying there in the bed. That had gone on for, I honestly don't know, but I'm going to say it was at least 2 weeks every night. That was followed by the complete breakdown. And then two things happened multiple years later that helped me situate that event. Pre-internet, we had to just have an experience with the library where the right book fell into your hands, or a conversation that you helped you understand something. Because it was a few years later in 96 where I'd been seeing a guy for a while in London, and he started talking about Tibetan Buddhist meditations where they would imagine rolling a golden ball from their head down to their feet and up again, and then to come out of their body, and to be able to control that process as some kind of death preparation, or at least some kind of spiritual mastery. And I was like, that's what happened to me. I don't mean that I was performing a Tibetan Buddhist meditation, but my soul took it upon itself to leave. That's how I understood it. That made sense to me, that I was living such a self-destructive life, but in an unconscious way. I wasn't aware of, despite the fact that I was drinking heavily and taking no care of my body, not even trying to sleep properly, my soul was ringing an alarm bell. My soul was saying, is that what you want? Do you want to leave the body? And it was showing me the rift that had taken place, where the mind in charge of the body was galloping in one direction and the soul had another idea of the way that I should be living. The second thing that I came to understand was an eerie synchronicity in psychogenealogy. After my mother died, we found papers regarding her mother's life. Now, all she knew was that her mother had abandoned her when she was 6 years old. And she had just understood this as, from a child's perspective, of her being abandoned, of being unloved, of her having something better to do, of her not wanting to be a mother. And we actually found out that she had a severe mental breakdown at exactly the same age that I did. Now, there's no way I could have been influenced consciously or even unconsciously by this, because that information wasn't available. We didn't find the documents until I was 49 years old. I'm making this video, as I said before, I think, as part of my attempt to be honest, speak from the heart, from a deeper place of truth in my life. And also because of the fact that I spent years with that information, with those experiences that I had, and they came back again, but that's a much longer story. I spent years thinking I was mad, having no language for it, going down a medication route. I went to a doctor, a GP. I was medicated. I met a psychiatrist. I went to hospital. I went down this allopathic, scientific, materialist route to try and get to grips with what had happened to me. I thought there was something gravely and terribly wrong with my being. I was paranoid and uncertain. And when that friend of mine talked about the Buddhist Tibetan meditation, just a light bulb went off in my mind. I was able to completely reframe the experience. It was the spiritual experience that I was having. And I was in a society where those things don't exist or didn't exist. And it's changing. But there's still a lot of people living in that reality, and they're having experiences that they don't have words for. And so I'm putting my experience out there. And if anyone comes across it and needs it, I would love to hear your experience too. I think we need to do this for each other. I think that we need to tell one another about certain experiences that we have that are not in our mainstream education and that we stay alone with. Let's make our own community. Thanks for listening. And please share your stories. Thank you again.